Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, home to 24/7 excitement, dining, and an on-site hotel at 1721 West Canal Street. More information at potawatomi.com.
This is Capital Notes from Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Maayan Silver, speaking with J.R. Ross, editor of WizPolitics.com. Hi, J.R. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So there have been more twists and turns in the Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor since we last spoke. Mandela Barnes dropped out of the race after allegations surfaced that he had some concerning behavior towards women. How have candidates leading in the polls, Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong and Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, how have they been appealing to Barnes voters?
Well, Hong is making the pitch that Barnes ran a progressive campaign and his progressive followers have a home with her. Crowley's making an electability argument that, Hong is going to have problems in November. She's the nominee, and that they need somebody, Democrats need somebody with executive experience who's won before in a large arena to lead them. He's also Barnes from the state with Governor Evers, who's basically putting his political legacy on the line here by trying to get behind Crowley's late push and see if they can get him over the top.
We've also got two other candidates in the Democratic primary, State Senator Kelda Roys and former Department of Administration Secretary Joel Brennan. They were each polling very low in the last Marquette poll, but that was before the televised debate. Is it reasonable for Democratic voters to presume that only Crowley and Hong have a chance to actually win the primary?
We have not seen any indication from Kelda Roys or Joel Brennan that they have the resources to put him over the top. I've been tracking ad buys in the, through various means from the state ethics website, through Ad Impact, which tracks ad buys. And there is a real effort behind David Crowley right now. So that is definitely going on. But I'm not seeing Joel Brennan or Kelda Roys have any similar kind of paid media campaign behind them now. What's interesting is Francesca Hong doesn't either. I went through her finance reports this week. She had reported all of like $300,000 for any media. Like that means mail, online ads, et cetera. She's doing zero TV, nothing on broadcast or cable TV, which is unusual to say the least for a person who's a front runner for a statewide election. But she's reaching voters a different way. She's got this kind of passionate base, and she's connecting through streaming services, that kind of stuff. So I don't want to say that paid media is the end-all, be-all, but I'm not seeing Kelda Roys or Joel Brennan catch fire in a way that suggests there's a groundswell of support with them, especially because we're not seeing a groundswell of resources for them. I'm looking at other things like you have to report contributions of $1,000 or more in the days after the close of reporting period. I'm seeing Crowley and Francesca raising okay amounts of money that way. Not seeing the same for Brennan or Roy. So all this kind of paints a picture of it's basically a two-person race. However, those two are on the ballot. So are Sarah Rodriguez. So is Mandela Barnes. So is Missy Hughes. We've also got thousands of ballots already cast absentee before Barnes dropped out. It's really a complicated picture because it's not like, Crowley would almost prefer a one-on-one matchup with Hong. That's not possible. Even if Kelda Roys or Joel Brennan dropped out late, they're still on the ballot. They're still going to draw votes, and people already voted for them at this point. So it's a kind of a complicated picture electorally for how the path for Crowley to win this thing because of what's already happened before he got back in.
And you mentioned Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. She's well in the lead as of the latest Marquette poll. It was conducted before Barnes dropped out. She appeared in South Milwaukee with controversial streamer Hassan Piker and Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. That's inspired some voters, but it's perturbed others who feel that Hong will lose more moderate support because of those actions. Republicans are also seizing upon some of her past tweets. Meanwhile, Hong is focusing on her presumed GOP opponent if she wins the primary, saying, quote, Wisconsin voters deserve serious reporting on the choices Tom Tiffany has made throughout his career and whose interests he has served. What should we know about this back and forth a day ahead of the primary?
So, look, Republicans are already seeing Hong as the likely Democratic nominee, and they want to try and bury her immediately with all this, negative outpouring of stuff about her past tweets and talked about canceling Thanksgiving and not liking Halloween or Valentine's Day and talking about, racial things. It's all part of an effort to discourage National Democrats from investing here because they want to make National Democrats say this is not a winnable race. If National Democrats abandon Francesca Hong, if she becomes the nominee, and they don't give her immediate resources after August 11th, it would really hurt her chances of winning come November. It happened 4 years ago. Mandela Barnes won the Democratic nomination. National Democrats kind of abandoned him post-primary. He eventually lost by a single point, but the hole he was put in was so deep post-primary, he could never get out of it. For Democrats, the keys are going to be, can they get enough resources in to help Francesca right out of the gate? Because she's not raising a ton of money. She's definitely got a passionate following, but she's not got the resources on her own to run an effective statewide campaign. Can they get the resources in nationally? Will she accept some help on messaging? Post-primary last week and a half ago, whenever it was, she was asked in the spin room afterward, hey, what about this defund the police comments you've made? She said, hey, if we're going to get tough on crime, we have to get tough on the causes of crime. It was a good line. People told me it made a lot of sense. But when you go from that to going on Fox News and talking about like canceling Thanksgiving, it's not a great media plan. There are better ways to approach this race than that. So will she accept help to try and right the ship that way? And, then three, she's got to kind of build an infrastructure. Yeah, she's got a passionate following of people, but you need more than that to win a statewide race. You need the entire operation apparatus for Democrats engaged. And she's going to have some issues with the traditional Democratic coalition. For example, black voters in Milwaukee. A lot of black voters have kids who go to choice schools. Francesca Hong wants to end the choice program. That could be an issue for her. She is calling for a moratorium on data centers, which is very appealing for some voters. But for hard hat union types, those are good paying jobs building those data centers. So they're not thrilled with Francesca Hong. How does she bring them into the coalition? She's got a lot of challenges ahead of her. I mean, honestly, the best chance for Francesca Hong, if she's a nominee, is for Donald Trump to have really bad numbers come October and gas to be like $4 a gallon or so.
This is Capital Notes. I'm Ayan Silver, speaking with J.R. Ross of WizPolitics.com. So back to the actual primary before our immediate future. We've got a Republican primary, a Democratic primary. Voters can vote in only one of them. Are you hearing from Republicans that they're expecting a lot of GOP voters to vote in the Democratic primary so they can vote for Hong because they feel she'd be a more attackable opponent for governor?
You see some stuff like that on social media, but I've never really seen an effective campaign to do that because it's so hard to organize. And two, there are contested Republican primaries up and down the ballot that Republicans would miss if they vote the Democratic primary for governor. If you vote the primary for governor for Democrats, you have to vote all Democratic races. You can't cross over and do other parties' races at the state Senate level, lieutenant governor, on down the line. So not sure about that. The bigger thing for Republicans crossing over is we've seen the Republican Governors Association spend $3.6 million on ads that supposedly are opposing Hong, but a lot of them are seen as an effort to actually boost her in the Democratic primary. I've also tracked spending by a group that has really covered its tracks very well. It's in about $1.3 million, roughly $1.2 million for Hong in mail and TV, even though it is really a Republican front group. The messages are all traditional Democratic talking points, all very, typical Democratic like mail and TV, like messages that you would see. But when you dig down, you figure out that, hey, wait a second. The only donor of this group was accused of being a Republican front group by Nebraska Democrats because it meddled in a congressional primary there. So Republicans, again, they see Hong as a weaker candidate and they want her to win this primary.
So back to the ad buys and the fundraising, you had mentioned that Hong hadn't spent a dime on traditional TV buys over the course of her campaign, and it's a stark contrast to others in the field, her other Democratic rivals, but also expected GOP nominee Tom Tiffany. He's reported $7.6 million in media expenses, including a $3.9 million buys on TV. What do you make of this?
Oh, he's benefiting from three big donors giving money to the state Republican Party, which is then transferring money to him. Look, Republicans rewrote campaign finance law back in 2015 to allow political parties and legislative campaign committees to take contributions on limited sizes and then make transfers to candidates with no cap. While they wrote the law, Democrats perfected that playbook with Governor Evers in the East Wing and Ben Wickler, state party chair. They raised money hand over fist. It funded the entire operation. Well, now you're seeing Republicans back, using that playbook again, where Diane Hendricks, the Beloit billionaire of ABC Supply Company, Liz Uline and Dick Uline, this Illinois business couple with Uline, also GOP mega donors, they've been pumping seven-figure checks into the state GOP starting kind of late spring, early summer. Then the state GOP is transferring big money to Tom Tiffany. It's totally legal and it's very effective. Candidates get a better rate on what they pay for their campaign ads than outside groups do. So when, you're talking about Tiffany spending that $3.9 million or whatever it is these days on broadcast TV, he pays less per ad than another group does. It's more efficiently use of the money. I think at this point, he's raised $13.3 million in 2026 overall. That doesn't include what he raised before January 1st. Of that $13.3 million, $10.2 million came from the state GOP in transfers.
Wow. On the flip side, for the past 8 to 9 years, as you mentioned, the Democrats were the leaders in these donor to state party to candidate fundraising. The governor, the state's top executive, is a Democrat, and the state party was a very well-oiled machine and had the footing and infrastructure to court out-of-state and in-state donors. Is there a lag here right now on the Democratic side for governor, and if so, what's the reason for it?
Well, they don't have a candidate yet, so they're raising money for a fund that will go to help the nominee, but there isn't one person. I mean, and let's be honest. If Francesca Hong wins the nomination, will she inspire national donors to invest heavily in Wisconsin? It remains to be seen. If it's David Crowley, will he inspire national Democrats to invest in Wisconsin? They got to get to this primary and figure out who the nominee is, and then make a pitch to these national donors of why they believe they're viable, why they have a shot to beat Tom Tiffany come November.
What do you think is Crowley's best approach to win the primary?
Good question. They've been riding on this idea that Tony Evers has this broad appeal. He's the most popular politician in Wisconsin. He can help David, vault into first place. The challenge is they only started a couple weeks ago. If the governor, people have told me over and over again, since this all kind of took place, that if the governor really wanted to shape the primary, he should have done this 6 months ago, even 2 months ago. Would have changed the entire complexion of the race. But by waiting until like mid-July, when Francesca Hong already had momentum and was like coalescing support, it made it that much harder for them to try and stop her. It's going to be interesting to see if how Evers is effective in this final pitch. Can he and David stop the Francesca Hong momentum?
And there's also the fact that David Crowley dropped out of the race and then got back in, and so that's kind of raising red flags to some voters.
This is unlike anything I've seen before. You have David. So Missy Hughes drops out June 22nd. David drops out, I think, July 8th, around there somewhere. Sarah Rodgers drops out July 17th. Crowley's back in July 18th. Then a week and a half later, Mandela Barnes drops. I mean, it's been one drama after another. And that's not helping, whereas Francesca Hong has just been this consistent kind of like progressive force in the primary, and she is speaking to voters in the Democrat base where they're at right now. That's what people tell me. Everybody else, they've argued, in this primary has played it kind of safe. Francesca has not. She's the only one talking about a moratorium on data centers. She's the only one connecting on these populist economic themes that resonate with primary voters. Now, remember, I'm talking about primary voters. It's a world of difference between winning a primary and winning a general election. Can she take that message and if she wins the primary, and make it fit with a purple state Wisconsin in the November electorate?
Are there any takeaways that you can share for Wisconsin from the Michigan primary, which just happened last week, where in that race, a Democratic Socialist candidate for U.S. Senate narrowly edged out a more mainstream Democratic candidate, and then in a congressional district, it went the opposite direction. Is there any takeaways from that or from national trends?
The only thing you take away from that really for Wisconsin is that polling in primaries is difficult. A lot of primaries that were released ahead of that election had the eventual winner up by double digits, some big double digits, and it was a single point. That's why I always caution. It's difficult to poll in Wisconsin, period. It's harder to poll in primaries. So, yeah, Francesca Hong is up in all the polls, but what if the polls are off? Like, that's something we just don't know right now.
And finally, how is Francesca Hong part of a more national trend with these Democratic Socialists and the Democratic Party?
Oh, I mean, there's a enthusiasm among those voters who are tired of what they see as an older, tired leadership in the party. They want energy. They want a new direction. They are feeling the weight of the economy on them, that they're struggling financially, and they're looking for a different approach. And here she's bringing it. So there's that. But flip side is Republicans nationally are looking at Francesca Hong and trying to make her the face of the Democratic Party for a reason, because they want Democrats to be associated with canceling Thanksgiving, canceling Christmas, all these kinds of things that she's tweeted about, defund the police, because to her, that makes Democrats seem that much more extreme and out of touch with the average voter, makes it easier to define them as these socialists who are not really for the American dream in their minds.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for the analysis, JR, and thanks for joining me on Capital Notes.
Anytime.
That was J.R. Ross, editor of WizPolitics.com, speaking with me, WUWM's Maayan Silver. Listen for our segments every other Monday with an extended segment on Lake Effect, and check out the Capital Notes podcast wherever you get your podcasts.